Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the regular meeting of the Fairhaven Historic Preservation Commission. Adequate notice of the meeting has been given pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act. At the time of the board reorganization in January of this year, the board adopted a regular meeting schedule for the year. Notice of the schedule was sent and was published in the Asbury Park Press on January 31st, 2025, and in the Two River Times on January 23rd, 2025. The notice is also posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Hall and has remained continuously posted there as required by the statute. A copy of the notice is and has been available for the public and is on file at the office of the Borough Clerk. A copy of the notice has been sent to the members of the public as have requested such information and in accordance with the statute. Adequate notice having been given, the board secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of the meeting. So can we have a roll call?
Mr. Conlon?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones? Yes. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Schiller?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mrs. Fedora? Yes. Mrs. Casey? Yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And Mrs. Forte?
Okay, we will get moving, and we have one application that is an informal application, and that is Mr. Henry Netzer. He is 28A Gillespie Avenue, which is block 51, lot 32. He's again, it's an informal application. We'll be seeking to get the board's guidance, the commission's guidance, I suspect, with regard to the movement of his front door to an area adjacent to an existing window, and vice versa, as contained on his application. So, Mr. Netzer, why don't you come on up, and for the purpose of transparency, I will put on the record that Mr. Netzer did contact me. We had a discussion preliminarily about what he intended on doing, and specifically the nature of his house, whether it's contributing or not contributing to the historic district, and just the extent of the work that he proposed, and sort of what he thought the best route to take in terms of coming before the commission. In light of the fact that he didn't have proofs lined up, I offered to him and suggested that perhaps an informal application would be the appropriate route. And as a result, I suspect from that conversation, he's here before us as an informal to get our take on what we propose here. So, all good?
Exactly. Thank you. May I sit?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll hear from you.
Okay, wonderful. You all have copies of the application that I submitted earlier this month. Now, the pictures may be out of order as far as how I might tell this little story. But the house is, as we said earlier, 28A Gillespie Avenue. It's at the corner of Gillespie and Newer Street, Captain's Point Road. The side of the house where we're considering the work is not on Gillespie. It's not that direction. That's what we consider the side of my house facing Gillespie. Whereas the work we're intending on doing, or hopefully doing, faces Captain's Point. A different picture is the front view of the house from Captain's Point. It's got a circle and a line through it, perhaps. I'm sorry if they're not in the right order. And that just shows that this is the front of the house. You've seen the one with the circle on it? Okay, great. Then perhaps the next page, I'm hoping in your deck, it's a view of the existing front stoop. And again, as it says here, there no changes would be visible from Gillespie because the house does face Captain's Point. And from the picture, can you see the door on the left and the window straight ahead? Mm-hmm. So those are the two items in question. And of course, everything is properly framed because there's a window and a door. And it wouldn't be a whole big deal construction-wise for the contractor to cut a bigger hole where the window is, put the window and just make a swap out. It would make a big difference. I don't know if anyone's walked by this house. It's definitely a cottage-sized house. And it's The downstairs is roughly 600 feet. And there's a big benefit to me to move the door. It's not just an arbitrary thing. The kitchen is rather long and narrow, and there's nothing but eating space in that room. So by moving the door and window, it would create an area roughly 9 feet by 7 feet that's uninterrupted from a door that's opening into it. And it would carve out a nice eating niche for a rather small home. So that's the purpose, I'm not doing this just to do it. Okay, so I net out some nice space for a dining table. And if you need some perspective, I'm sorry I didn't put this in earlier, if you got a picture of the stoop, the front bricks, it's 9 feet wide and approximately 5 feet deep, not including the first 2 steps up. And I think it would also, this is such a natural move because you come up the steps, you see the door, you go through the door. Then you kind of come into the kitchen, but there's pluses and minuses for everything. But again, netting out a dining area would be worth what might not even be an issue to come into the kitchen. And it's always been kind of weird. You come up the steps, you make a turn to get into the door, and then when people come to the door, it's always a little awkward. I think this might be a more natural flow. There's some mock-up in here that would show what it would look like, and to make it easy to envision it. I don't know if you have that page handy, and then there's also a before and after page. I don't know if you will see the before and after page. So that kind of spells out what it would illustrate what it would look like. That's pretty much the story.
Tell us a little bit about the house. How old is the house? What's the history of it? Kind of interesting to have a two-stall house. And its location in the left.
On the deed to the house, it says it was constructed in 1927. There's 2 other properties on the north side of Captain's Point Road. Mine's the first one on the corner. The middle one is sort of almost twice as large as mine. And then the third one is a much larger version, probably 4,000 square feet. It sits right on the river. One day a historian came by and I was out in front of the house and he asked me about the house and he was loaded with questions. He knew a lot more than I did. He said that this used to be, the main house was a fishing sportsman's retreat. I don't know if people fought their way in or just came out because they were invited. That's as much as I kind of knew about that. I've heard other stories where one particular owner gave the middle house to his daughter, and that cathedral ceiling is beautiful. That you familiar with that middle house? I don't know if you've ever been in it, but that cathedral is beautiful. If you look back towards the kitchen, there's a little balcony in the living room. And there was some folklore that the young daughter put on puppet shows and the little marionette stuff upstairs. It's just been a great place to live. I just want to be more comfortable in the same house. I don't want to move. I just really like the neighborhood a lot. And I've been here since 1997 and it's 1998. And we bought the house in May of '98. So it's 27 years.
Before it was Captain Point Square, the driveway emptied out onto another roadway. Was that a public roadway or was that just a driveway that serviced some of the houses that were back there?
Yeah, that's what it was. There was a family, their name was Lawrence, and Mrs. Lawrence was the house in the back right on the river. That's currently number 1 Captain's Point Road. Essentially the same footprint because that's what the town wished for and got. But of course, it's a deluxe, gorgeous home. But there was an artist cottage off to the side, which now there's another 4,000 plus square foot beautiful home. And one house a little closer up on Captain's Point, the first one you approach as you come down on the north side of Captain's Point. And those homes, I guess they're about 7 or 8 years old now. But before they were there, it was just a dirt road that went all the way down. And my side had an easement, which was a concrete paved easement. So people drove about 7 feet from my front door to get past me to go to the other two homes. Even with all that, it's still a lovely place to be, and it wasn't enough to gripe a whole lot about,
Right.
but,
Yeah, so, just a couple of things, the fact that it's Captain's Point Way, it's technically a private road, we've still determined that to be a public right of way.
Sure.
Since there's not restricted access to the house that you were mentioning, the one that's next to you on the east side, the other two, they've come before us and we've treated the facade of that to be something that's within the jurisdiction of the commission. In terms of whether or not it's visible, it doesn't matter whether it's just simply visible from Gillespie, but I do think probably the door would be maybe on an angle visible from Gillespie. But having said that, the house, and Jay and Joe, tell me what your thoughts are, but I would think that, looking at it, the door doesn't upset the symmetry of the house in any way. And and if anything, probably is, like you said, a more logical entry point based on the articulation of the stairway and the landing pad in front of the door, in front of the window and the door. So I don't think, it certainly doesn't change the configuration to the extent that the house, it's not a significant historic structure in the district. However, it's a contributing structure, and based on what you told us, it has an interesting history. 100 years old virtually, and
Yeah.
Don't really know much about that fisherman's lodge or any of the accessory structures. Maybe we should look into that. It certainly is a contributing structure with an interesting story, but at least from an informal standpoint, I don't see anything negative or detrimental making that minimal change. Primarily because it doesn't upset the symmetry of the house from a facade standpoint.
You said the existing door and relocating it and the window?
frankly, that door, I don't know how old that door is, but it's plenty old. I've sanded it, painted it a couple of times. It's a little beat up. If you tell me to keep it, I'll have it taken off and professionally cleaned and sanded and painted. I'd love to go to the store and get a new fresh storm front door. I'm very flexible. More important is that I can make the move.
Yeah.
And if there's some good guidance, I'd love to take some.
Show us the door, and that if you're gonna change it, you're gonna change it with a light door, then I think that would be perfectly acceptable. And would the window be a new window, or would it be moving that existing window?
It would be the existing window. Yeah.
So I think, and that's a very valid point. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I suggested come in as an informal, because you weren't sure what you wanted to do with the door. And it's unclear from the photos exactly the type of door it is, if it's at all historically significant, whether or not it's original to the house. Maybe if you provide a little bit, when you file a formal application file, provide a little bit more information. It's something that's like kind visually, is what we would probably be looking for. I'll let these gentlemen speak as well, but I think that that would be what we'd be looking for. You mentioned storm doors, so I would suspect that a door with maybe a glass storm door would not be something that would be something we're looking at, something that really doesn't change the nature and configuration of the entryway to the house. So something very similar to what you have there, or we're using the existing door.
Just to be expedited with time, I'd be happy to move the existing door as is. And there is a storm door in front of it right now. It is 2 panes of glass right now that's here.
That's part of that.
Is that also a door to move slowly?
No, that's an Anderson of much later vintage. I didn't put in any of those windows.
I can't really tell what it is.
Yeah, it's
Is this photos that you provide, are they just photoshopped, basically using the exact same board?
exactly, yeah, that was a
I
mock-up.
mean, that configuration is something that really, I think, acceptable.
If it's an Anderson new door, it wouldn't matter to me, what storm door was put on, because it was already in the storm door. They'd be more concerned about the actual.
And just to backtrack 1 second, and thank you for that point. This picture here, that might show the door better, the storm door.
Yeah.
That's kind of a close-up.
So just when you come back on a formal application, just be specific with that. In other words, if you're using a builder or if you're gonna reuse the existing, in other words, even if you have specifications or manufacturers or anything like that, instead of just saying to put in a similar door, that's a little bit lacks specificity. I don't think we have to be specific as we would be on a significant structure. But specificity would be helpful with maybe images and photos, clear photos of what's there versus what you're gonna be trying to do.
Now, just selfishly to save some of my time and effort, could I suggest that I keep the door and put it anywhere where the window is? And then when I'm ready to shop for a new door, then reconvene and approach the commission to see if you accept that door and then replace it later?
I mean, my vote, I can't speak for the commission, but I would think that would, the reason that I mentioned before, I don't think there could be any problem with moving the door. And obviously, if you're using that which is existing, that would be an avenue, which is a two-step process, as opposed to just getting it all done now, but that's completely up to you.
Well, I'm thinking, if I fill out the application, tomorrow, Monday, I get on the next meeting, it's a month from now, and someone said, no, we don't like that door. And then I've got more time and so forth, whereas at least I can have the work done
Yeah.
by using the door.
Are there any thoughts or comments from anyone on the commission about the door that's there now?
Yes. Functional or structural issues that bug you about the door, like it's driving, it's not in shape,
It's not in good
But I
shape.
think us to say, yeah, put in the for hard parts.
I think it's time to upgrade the door, but I don't know if I'm gonna have time to come back here with the door in a month, and then some folks may say, well, get a red door, or get a more round door.
I've got an idea of what it's from. For one, I agree with regard to Joe that the moving of the two would really be unnoticeable, I think, to anybody going by. I mean, I guess most of us be concerned on the quality of the work, the cutting in, the patching and all that, that would be done in a way that was well done as opposed to, something that where it was an obvious, kind of, so that's one. Two, like you said, there is the ability to refurbish and reinstall, or alternatively, it may be cheaper to photograph that and have it remade in kind, as opposed to an Anderson. There's a number of millwork facilities around here that could give you a number, and you could at least compare that to Anderson and refurbishing it as is.
Now, pardon me if I might not have been clear about this, the original wooden door, which is red
Yes.
with some window pane and a little bit of detailed treatment on it, that's not an Anderson door, right?
I understood.
Okay,
Well, it's a period, it came with the house.
you came with the house and who knows who made that?
Yeah, and there's, we'd be happy to share a few of those contacts, but maybe get a number of them versus we finished it, because I hate you to go through all the time and effort and money to reinstall it, to just to take it out and then have to spend again, as opposed to doing it, right the first time, or alternatively, it's unclear from this picture how close this would be to an, well, there's a number of big, local ones, but door companies that they have one that's so close that you couldn't tell. But you can't really tell from the photograph, so those seem like three different avenues to go down. I don't know what shape it is and how bad, how much effort it would take to redo it.
Do you have a contractor that will work now that is poised to, or she poised to do the work?
He is, he's got other things. This was the can of worms. I wanted to replace piece for piece kitchen cabinets. Because they were cabinets that were built on site.
Would, have you talked to him about the type of door you want to replace it with? What exactly was he suggesting? Do you have any give and take with?
Now, he knows I'm here tonight, hoping to get the approval or some good direction from this commission. So we wouldn't proceed beyond a conversation that he can do the work, structurally it's ready to go. And he actually said I could take this off, sand it down nicely, paint it nicely, and I don't dislike the door, I just thought a new door was in my future, because I was going to do this and take it out. It's a nice old door, so I don't mind swapping it for the sake of time, and then approaching you folks, and I have to approach you folks anyway next month in a formal way to get a decision. I won't say I should go ahead with this tonight.
I think that's correct, right?
There is another option where you could take that old door and hang it in a new jam. And he could rehang the door in a new jam with correct weather stripping, contemporary sill. And that might solve all the problems right there, instead of using the old jam as the door, just hanging the door in the new jam.
Which may get damaged, taking it out.
You're very not punching.
Okay, I'm gonna make a note of that.
I also think that the change that you're making is gonna make it the house more viable, because as you said, it's not very big. And space is then a premium, and I think that making it more functional is gonna help to, keep the incentive to, when and if you sell it, the next buyer to keep it and enjoy it as well.
I think there's only positives to make this move, and again, speaking just selfishly, I want to stick around here and I want to live in that house. And it just would make it more comfortable. It's funny how things happen. A friend of mine's a carpenter, and I showed him pictures. He went like this and like that, upside down for a minute, and within less than a minute, he said, "You gotta move the door." And I've had some smart people come through and give me all kind of advice. And when he said it, I went home later, and it was an aha moment. So I'm gathering, not to be presumptuous, but this sounds like a favorable idea, and that you folks would likely be on board with me doing this type of work, provided that the door is up to the style and standard that you'd like it to be.
Well, it would be same or similar to this door that's there, that presumably is close to the origins of the house. So again, I can tell you, I mean, it doesn't seem like anybody has any issue with the movement of the door or the keeping of the existing door or something the same or similar. But if you do decide to swap it out for another door, my caution is to be specific with either photos or specifications or a description or even a model, so that we know what you're actually swapping out. You can't just do it sort of in the abstract, because we don't want to put you off. And we are giving you the flexibility, sort of saying that it work any way you want, and whatever works for you.
I hear that, and I'm trying grateful for the encouragement and positive feedback. So
Is this the second house from the street, which
the first one,
It's the first one, okay.
Yeah.
Because it looks very much like the second one, because my daughter-in-law grew up there.
in the second one.
The second, yeah,
Okay, I probably, before I moved into the area,
yeah.
it was always this
No,
other
I
gentleman.
couldn't remember if I didn't notice the door there.
You
So-
know, I think that was describing as far as the fishing club was the Moody's house, that was the fishing club, the event was called Moody's house.
Yeah, no, I didn't notice.
The one that's on the river, which is all, it's been repainted, but it also to.
So thank you all, and I'd like to leave you with some notes so I don't have to
Sure.
overly think this.
No, absolutely.
Number one, if I decide to use the current door, cleaned up and so forth, that's an option for me to use.
Absolutely.
Okay. If I go shopping, do I have to actually buy the door or just take a picture of the door and say, this is what I'm going to buy?
Picture or specification or both. lines.
And we'd also like to see the one that you wouldn't be using it, so you could kind of assess what that difference would be. So just to, again, photograph of the existing door and this, or picture of the proposed door, and that would be.
So,
I'll take a bunch-
close-up photos of the existing door from the exterior, open the storm door, take some photos of the main door. So that we can see what's there. Because again, it's not that, I mean, we can see a bit of what is there, but it's a little hard to see.
That sounds terrific. Am I still here? Now, do I need to answer anything, or I forget to ask you something? No,
All good?
I'd say better than good. This is what I hope to hear, because it will make a big difference. It's cozy in there, real cozy. So this is gonna be helpful. I'll fill out another application suddenly, so I can get on the June meeting.
I'm just curious, where did the door that was changed, where would the door lead to when you open that door?
Into the kitchen.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah.
And that's like the living room over here,
But, I don't know what you're pointing to.
well, you know, the big windows, where the door is. now.
That's, going to be the dining area.
Okay, yeah,
And then there's no walls, there's nothing else in that area, so it flows into the living room and den type area.
as I said, my daughter-in-law grew up in the second house, so this is the first house, right, the middle one.
Correct, this
Yeah, and but it's amazing, I've been in that house so many times, and it has the little, banister or.
like a balcony up above.
Little tiny balcony. For
Yeah.
midgets,
Oh, that's a great house.
yeah.
It's got a ton of character. Yeah.
Great,
I'm gonna-
again, so more visuals, the better. There is a comment from the audience. Susan?
So I'm confused, because I sat through all the 20 Gillespie, when they were subdivided, et cetera. And I didn't think that the road in, the Point Road, is it? Was, public. It doesn't, if they have to drive their garbage cans out to Gillespie, they don't get snow removal, that's part of the homeowners association. So I don't consider it a public road, so I don't understand why it's here.
So a couple of reasons, and specific to this application, that door and that portion of the house is visible on an angle from the left. So it's moved as far as that issue for the purpose of this application. But wait, let me just finish. So otherwise, we have treated that as a public road thoroughfare only because of the fact that there's no restriction to the public. Granted, they have an HOA or whatever it is that they pay into, and they do have services and snow removal. However, there's no restriction from anybody in the public from going to that area. So in the past, we have treated it as a public thoroughfare, and it would be inappropriate to treat it any differently at this juncture. I think, maybe that a year ago, whenever the application was before us for the other two houses, we went back and forth on it. I think the resolution was that we did exercise jurisdiction. It was a similar situation, however.
Let me just say, I'm familiar with the house. And I don't think you can see the door from Gillespie at all. Maybe the window part. But because of how it's nestled behind the house, I don't think it's visible.
When I spoke with Mr. Nemser about it, I'm familiar with the roadway, and I did have an opportunity to look, and the door as it exists right now is not visible. However, at an angle, I believe that the door will be visible once it is modified. So
See, this is like nitpicky, I think.
Or does the official historic district map, does that include that private road and?
the official historic district map is generated before the subdivision of Captain's Point.
Does that mean that there should be an opportunity to redraw the historic district since the new roads? And then,
That's not for us to say. If the borough wishes to do that, it's something that they can do.
And
And
does that also-
again, it's, if it's something that it is arguably within our jurisdiction, I can't make a decision on my own, to say, no, it's not something that should come before us. And it usually, results in the applicant coming to determination as to whether or not census we think it in fact is within our jurisdiction. And I think arguably here, as it explained to you, it's visible from Gillespie, whether it is or it isn't, if you dispute that. That I think is permitting us to assume jurisdiction of this. That's the answer to the question. Anything else on that?
I think there's a precedent that we have in the house that can do it.
Lawrence,
No.
Yeah, that one, right, it's on a private driveway.
Yeah.
It's not.
Does that mean that if there, anybody on a, because we said that was the street, does that mean any aspect of the house, an eave, a window, or that window is visible from Gillespie, that this serves as a precedent that?
Technically, if it's visible from the street, it's something that falls within our jurisdiction. I think that an argument could be made that they're changing something to use your description, a component of the house that's not visible, arguably it wouldn't be within our jurisdiction. So if that house, stick with that example, if it faces the river and they're making some modification facing the river or facing north, but yet the south facing portion would be the only portion, maybe the second floor is visible to the left. Yeah, that would be within our jurisdiction, but technically it fits within it. And whenever we have something that technically fits within our jurisdiction, we have to err on the side that exercise the jurisdiction.
So what is the window, the existing window visible from?
Very, very. You put it down, you make it
So that's what's being changed to a door, so that would tell me that it's subject to more jurisdiction.
yes.
I just want to be as respectful as I can to the neighborhood, to you folks. Do the right thing, sleep well at night, and not have some kind of tattletale person pointing fingers, and I'm here drag here instead of willingly approach with a reasonable kind of spirit. They're easy for them. It's like I put a table out by the driveway, so they didn't. When I used to have a dog. So I think I'm all set.
Yes.
I know my options, and I'm much obliged for your time and services. Thank you.
All right. On to old business. We have licensing hall, fifth chapter. We have our liaison, floor. Please.
Okay, Bicentennial Hall.
We also have Council
Yeah.
Person Coles here, you can come up, so obviously I'm sure you'll want to weigh in on some of this discussion.
The latest I have is that they're waiting on a second vote from that comment.
And Teresa Pelton has, you know.
It's referring to, preparation of bid documents for the next wave of improvements. We've been calling the punch list. Things like, reinstalling doors or making them, install them and they're open. Hopefully that'll work. The paint, the locks, a dedicated bicycle parking, a number of things. And Matt Cronin is gonna ask for her quote for his portion of the bid documents. And, the engineer is handling the components sort of on either end of Matt's piece.
Since we're here in construction, and today we did get a chance, I did look at the
Yeah,
handicap ramp. It's great, it did a great job, it's sort of minimalist, but I think that's perfect for what you need.
I'm glad you like.
Very good, yeah, really, great job. Anything else? Anything else, Tracy? I mean,
Any items now, it's been on the paint. The
The paint is part of this, it's the So it will be hopefully when the package of specifications put together. I think the trickiest part of this is gonna be getting the right contractor to respond to the bid. And because it's an unusual bundle of jobs. But, if any of it has to be pulled out or separated, I'm sure that's part of the discussion, whether it's an ad alternate in case we need to get, to find a place. But it'll be done as a package, it is being put out as a package.
Probably have a little more explain.
We won't know the timing until the bid documents are prepared, but usually after they're prepared, and it's. 3 steps if I remember. We've already authorized the preparation of this, that was one council meeting some time ago last year, actually. And then we have to authorize it to go out to bid. No, that's already happened, I believe, and then after they send it out, there's a 30-day window for them to be received by various contractors. And there's a period of time where the engineer and other officials review those bids. Then they rank them in order of, which one came in at the best rate. And then they qualify those bidders to ensure they meet all of the government has a lot of requirements, that they're licensed, that they have the proper certifications, that the hiring practices are equitable. And then they make a recommendation to council, which is then accepting and we award the bid. And then the contractor is notified, and then there is some period of time for that contractor to mobilize. And then it starts. So, yeah, I'll just keep you posted as you can. The other thing that's been going on is, and is anticipated at any moment, or any time, I should say, the award for the planning grant for the programs and displays and other things, that the community might want to do here. It was awarded, there is a contract being drawn up and the staff is waiting for that contract to hit our board administrator's desk, that I understand that that's forthcoming. And then it'll be a matter of planning when that work will get underway. That's Bicentennial Hall. Oh,
Are you speaking of the non-construction activities?
Correct.
Educational things in there?
Yeah, education, archiving, presentation, museum component. I'm not saying what it will be, I'm just saying the potential for those types of
Right.
programs.
Right.
We want to have a docent program, do we want to have the doors open, do we want volunteers operating, being available for field trips, and there's a lot of ideas, all wonderful. But we'll have professionals help facilitate that discussion. There is one other thing related to Bicentennial Hall, if that's there on the agenda. The council meeting, 4 days ago, I'm so tired. The Historic Association, for those of you on the board, know this already, there's a few board members here, voted to propose to the town of Fairhaven that they donate a landscape design and installation, which are to finish really Bicentennial Hall, with the hopes that it would be completed in time to celebrate our 250th anniversary. And so the proposal was made at the last council meeting, and everyone was very enthusiastic about the idea. So next steps will be to reconvene the board and talk about interviewing landscape architects, and we'll love any recommendations that folks here on the board, on the commission might know. And then we'll take that to the historic commission.
So the association would put the bill for the architectural work, and the borough would pay for the actual planting.
No, it was not presented that way. It was that they would pay for, I think a lot of us will shake that once we know the costs, but what was discussed was preparing the design and doing the installation.
So the association would pay for the
A
installation.
donation. I can tell you now, the cost of the installation for government is gonna be a lot higher than it would for not-for-profit to do it. And I took the time, I had a preliminary meeting with Mr. York about what the mechanisms are in place, and what are the hurdles not-for-profit would have to go through in order to do this. And it's a very straightforward donation. So I was pleased. I know there's tons of conversations with our former VA, much more complex. So I don't know why that's the case, but anyway, it's a new day and it's a better day.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So we'll keep you posted. Nothing about the design or the process will move forward without, the cadence of the meetings allows the presentation materials here at the same time as the Source Association season and the council. So, that's good.
Great, that's good.
Mhm.
Anything else on this license? Oh, sorry.
I'm curious, how are they getting the paint color?
It's a very good question. You want to talk about it?
Well, you're better versed in this than I am, what the status of it is right now, because we haven't taken any formal position. on it, so.
Yeah. I mean, Susan asks a very good question. I know I had the same question. It's my recommendation that this body consider it being part of the decision. Bringing in other stakeholders that we think are knowledgeable, devoted, interested. And I know at one point, this is going back a few meetings. We talked about it. What strikes me is there's a decision to be made about what color it will be. And then there was a conversation about the importance of knowing what it has been over time. Meaning, it was at one time this color and the building lived this kind of life. And then in its next iteration, it served as a church or a community center and it is different color at different times. And in that way, it would help us understand what our options are and what is appropriate. And so at the moment, there's no process that I'm aware of to answer your question directly, Susan, but I think we could propose a process.
Ultimately, the determination is by the borough makes that decision. So that would be a council vote, I suspect.
I think the council would vote on something like maybe, but not without a professional recommendation.
No,
you know?
understood, but
Yeah.
ultimately, the decision on what to do has to come by virtue of a council vote. Because it's borough, it's products owned by the
That's
borough.
probably fair, maybe that is the ultimate, I mean, I certainly think that it should be guided by a professional.
Yeah,
And
how far away do you think we are from making a determination on it?
I'd like to get a process in place like yesterday, personally.
But in terms of the determination,
Well,
how far away?
It's the same question we were talking about earlier, when is the work gonna start? Because you can't go buy a paint color. Not knowing when, well, we could, but we don't know when we're gonna start, but the time between now and the time the contractor's ready to start. We should undertake a process to,
Yeah, and is it something though that the council should determine? In other words, the process, I don't know, we have the ability to, I mean, we are, again, at your point, well taken, stakeholders, there is a stakeholder group.
yeah,
We have, realistically speaking, we obviously should have a say as well. There's also been some, public comment thought as well, how that gets disseminated to the public, we don't really know, but is that a determination for us to make, or is that anything that the council is wrestling with right now?
well, the bandwidth is pretty packed.
Yeah, I
So-
understand.
I think these special sort of, this is a more narrow decision, even though it's extremely important. And so I think it does need to be pulled out and really considered here. It's squarely within your jurisdiction. The decision, or at least the advisory role that this commission plays.
Yeah.
But
Has there been discussion at the association meetings as to how that?
Did we actually approve a process months ago, which said this body will make a recommendation?
Well, we had some discussion about.
Yeah, and then.
Yeah, we never really got that far in the discussion. Because, have all these different elements.
And the other thing we had approved was that professional paint evaluator, whether they come and sit in those chairs and talk to us. And I thank you for inviting me and done the work or whatever the process is, and then present their recommendation to us, or they present it to
Now, 100 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, I was working with fathers and And I had, a pink, right. He actually said that it was, if the original chip, we had chips so that we took off the paint at the bottom. And he took it and had it checked out, and it was a green.
So what I'm curious about, what was that process though? Was it just a small, who hired him to provide that input to the historic association then?
Well, no, I picked up the little pieces of paint that were left on the bottom, and it was the original paint on the. And so that's where we got the paint from, little chip like that. And so then we got painters that did the work.
So here we're saying, it sounds like it was more less fruity back then, and maybe what we're looking for is a process where who does that kind of work? Because the
You got professional people to come and tell us the colors, and then we got people, the professionals to do the work.
There were kind of work with other people.
Yeah, because I see it saying, was there ever, at that point, was there ever a report or did anything in writing, as the findings were?
Not that I know, it was all matter of, well, this is the way that it was when it was built in 1881.
Do you remember who those people were?
God, no.
I wonder, basically these, can the association? I don't know how to work, can the association just say, we'll look into this, we'll find somebody and cost $2,000 for them to come and do something, we'll get a report for you guys, they can give us a little bit of history, or they can't, from somebody who does start paying analysis. Can the association, is that something you want to do? Is that something? It sounds like no one's going to do it.
Well, that's an assumption, that's an assumption.
Yeah.
And if I can, there's really three parts here, because I've been taking notes very talking. There's, the absence of a process, and this body can recommend a process. Not maybe the specifics of it, but make sure to take steps to put a process in place, even if that's the recommendation. But the process is one piece. It seems like there's also some research, which is another piece, and then there's reports and findings. And that seems like the third piece. Is there any other piece of work related to this that?
No, I think that we're finding somebody who has expertise that can provide some background. I think it's the starting point, because even, regardless of what our process is, we need that basis of information for anybody to make a decision. So we're not in a position, the commission's not in a position to have somebody do that. The point's well taken, and maybe that could be something that the association can look into.
It could be in my role, wearing many hats. I would say the association would want, if that's something to take back to the board, then the association would want to first establish with the governing body that would be welcome. So because the association can own the building, to spend the money to produce a resource like that it would not be used, would be futile. So
And I think that was what's different. That's why we have, it sounds like you were given purview to make those decisions, you didn't have to go to the council.
No, because the decision was made by the chip, the little chip that we took off the building, as the original thing. So it was only, at the bottom.
No, I don't, that's it, I'm just finding out the process.
So we were able to do that, and then, the official person, that we didn't just say, hey, get a painter. We got a special person.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
what I'm going to find part is who's the lead, because we had this discussion. Many
It was just a group of us, but we were from the association. It was just people that were interested in, it was.
Did anybody in the governing body say, wait a minute? You can come. Did anybody in the governing body ask you to bring your proposal to them before?
I don't recall, but I doubt it.
So that's what's different from
Yeah.
than back then. So therefore, I just think whoever it is, someone has to own the decision to, define the process, hire the professional. What the outcome is, I might speak to that.
I was the one thinking.
Yes, we do want someone, if someone were willing to volunteer and said, I'll go get a couple of people who are certified and will know. Figure out, take the time, like, the cost to do this, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I can do that. I know
Yeah.
people can start with restoration careers, but that's not too much that whole thing about the process.
I think I think there's, we do have to get some, you do have to get agreement from the government that, look, you're not gonna just decide amongst yourself.
No, I agree.
Well, that has not been established.
Well, I mean, it's principle, one way or the other, bound by it would be information that can be taken into consideration.
Not you guys, I mean,
Who can grant us authority? I know it might sound silly to like take a chip off a piece of property.
Is there?
That belongs to town. Is that the?
Is there something on this place?
Is that because the town hall?
Slopes,
Well, that's what I'm saying,
and
yeah,
that was like, you know.
to Katie's point, 2025, and it's more, more rules, more red tape. Like, who can give us maybe that's just a simple answer, it's like, who would be the last body or person to say, go ahead, take a piece of paint off the side of the building.
So
Go
I
ahead, Ted.
agree. In my opinion, if it's not someone on this board or in the historical association, I don't know who else would be, because we are constantly making decisions here based on the honor expertise.
Right.
These two gentlemen who talk with their understanding of architecture. So in my opinion, the first step should be taken by someone on this commission to at least be assessed, and I have done some research on how other groups have done this, not the actual color, you know, talk about talking to people in the Hampton Museum, the Rutgers has those, there is a process.
And again, it's not like just getting,
No, no.
you never
Of
know.
course, I don't think this is the nature, I would focus on this. A color has, like Tracy said, and work backwards, once the bid, that process is in play, a paint and buckets of paint have to be ordered, and what is that color, so how do we get to that?
Yeah,
So-
whoever it is that's hired, that when that determination is made, they come on site, it's not just pulling some paint off. They have to do analysis, because we used to say what error of the paint is, and then
And
line on
from what I read, this is not regulated. This is not the whole structure that has had to go through that process of hiring experts to do paint color analysis. So,
But it wasn't darker green. It was not white. That's what the people were saying, oh, I think it was white. No, it wasn't white. That's why we got the paint chip, because that was the original chip that was right from the board.
So can we just make that recommendation now at the next council meeting? You want to just do that, like, say, we recommend
yes,
retaining someone to come and do the analysis, and then I guess what the council vote on it? And
Well, I think you formally have to say, so you want to make a motion, you can do that.
may I contribute a thought for your consideration prior to the motion?
Sure.
But I certainly understand to get to the action would be great, and then I can help liaise that to you. I would lay out earlier the need for a process because there is an owner of the building and then there are all the stakeholders. And the owner has to also agree to the process. The owner is the governing body. They represent the owners, right? It's the people's building. But it's important to take that step because there might be some people who just think, I don't know, the process, we'll just decide for ourselves. I'm not saying that's true, but if that's there, making sure that there's a commitment from the 6 legislators who would like to have a process that gives them the opportunity to say, no, we're gonna have a process. So I would like you to consider that possibility of recommending a process. My other suggestion is that the right professional is probably not somebody who's gonna come to paint samples. I think there's a time and a place for that, but initially a preservation architect or somebody who knows how to look through the archives to see the story. This building was built at a certain period of time. It was a certain color. It was used for a certain purpose, and it lived an entire life before this moment in time. And there were changes in those things, but having that narrative will really, be an important part of how to steward this building moving forward. And it will also help inform the choices of the options that are available to us for now. So I think that the right professional is, and I'm open to all your suggestions, but I think it's a preservationist or an architect that is comfortable with this topic and a little bit of research. It's not that hard, there's some available information. And
And I
then
take
they
people-
generate a report.
People that have been on behalf of the borough, are they qualified? Would that be,
Well, I think, that one fellow, Mr. Pavlov,
well,
Pavlov, excuse me, yeah, he seems eminently qualified. I could approach Matt Cronin since he's currently engaged on this property. I could approach him just to find out if it's something he feels he could do properly for us, because he's really researching
yeah,
the past life of the building, which is documented, good, for the most part. He may or may not feel that that's within his wheelhouse,
yeah, and I think Kathleen is,
and,
certainly qualified, he's done work on this project before, he's well aware of his own history. I don't even know if he's doing this sort of thing, or if that's something that, sure, he would be able to render some type of, analysis, but whether or not that's something that's his specialty, that maybe he could assist in directing this.
yeah,
And one thing that's unique about this board is we have many applicants for and many have wanted to make changes because of changes in their family needs. So the argument that just because the needs have changed, we have stuck firm and said, I'm sorry, I know you want your kids better, or this, that. X, Y, and Z just for your functional needs, and you've even said that here. You have to retain the intent of this, the way that your house was, historically, so I guess I think if anything that we do from this body is the same ilk, that yes, that building has been, this building has been used for many different purposes over the decades, but we've always, I think, leaned towards what was the original intent, purpose. And if, I think that's how we operated from.
so I'd be interested in that story. I feel like I don't know that story. That's why I think building the chapters, I don't even know how many chapters there are, but if it was built in what, 1882? The life of the building, it doesn't have to be a long report, but. So I submit those thoughts to you for your consideration as you formulate next steps.
And ultimately, this board would just make a recommendation to the council and to the town, and they're gonna make the final decision.
All right,
So, I mean, to a certain degree, that may give us more latitude here, as opposed to not dragging too much to the council. We're just advising to the council. They're gonna weigh a whole number of factors that they have. There's history, there's public sentiment, I mean, whatever it may be. But that may give us, the process is important, but getting the knowledgeable right people here to advise us of it. And again, we're just making a recommendation. And whether it goes to replicating what was originally, or like you were intimating, well, was there some other iteration of it over the past period of time that would be something to consider. Or was there other corollaries from elsewhere that might be transferable and appropriate here?
But I think that's what we're gonna do, predict it, we're gonna get a little bit of. Because we should have a consensus, and I'm not saying that it should be this or not. Do we think it just should be what as close to what the original color was, period? Yes. I'm not.
That we should have.
Yes, not making up.
Because it's it's not as easy, well, that's a good answer, but
Yeah.
there's other points too. And what's coming to mind is having somebody that has a background, who can, talk to us, for, if there is a housewife that I know that I may be able just to ask him. And he retired now, but that's all he did was, historic buildings, here in New Jersey, Staten Island, ships and things like that.
Really?
I think,
So I think that in terms of the commission, I'm kind of asking Tracy as well as from the commission, from the association matter, that would be something that I think we would be very interested in, is commissioning somebody to form an analysis, not just the points well taken, not just a pain analysis, but sort of a historic / structural analysis, if you will, to determine what the original was and just the whole ideology of the building and things of that nature. So we can look into that. I mean, I will make a couple calls, Jay's gonna look into that. I will reach out to Pat and Mr. Kaplan.
Do you have a budget, Art? Does the Historic Preservation Commission have a budget? I should know that probably, but I don't know.
We've never expended any money. Now I'm being told that.
Thank you, Sheila.
I know there was a time in the past that there was some money allocated. We've never.
Yeah, I mean, if you, think, for example, if, say the County Historic Preservation, the Office of County Historic Preservation had resources and technical trained professionals who could come out and do this sort of thing for their even.
Yeah.
And it was a flat rate of $1,000 and you had a little bit of money, you would just do it and notify the governing body, we're gonna undertake this professional and fee in keeping with your budget to explore this history of.
Well, I guess that's
But,
the other.
but you're gonna probably have to ask for a little bit of money. to bring it in.
Well, that, which is a possibility, and we probably won't know.
Yeah.
Testing these waters and see if you could reach out to some people as well. I didn't know anybody could do that, but there was a potential promotion pending. Do you think that there should be a request by the commission to the council, whether or not they would even consider that? Or
No, I mean, I think you're gonna put it as a recommendation. I'll let them deal with whether or not they feel it's a worthwhile recommendation to take up that. You mean, you say like preliminary, like.
well,
informal
because it
approach
goes
to
to the
council
depth
and
of
say,
it,
hey,
it's not something they want to consider.
well, if you wanna break it into pieces, then the first thing would be, like you'd say. We recommend we institute a process that includes, the public, if they wanna participate, a professional. A role which will cost some dollars. And that, it results in a final report that covers and just put that in the form of a recommendation. Or you can just propose, yeah, that's just proposing the process. And in that case, you're taking one, I think if I'm reading what you're saying, taking one step at a time.
And when you say this, it comes to mind that, I mean, ultimately, I think it's the council that would need to take varying points of view and expectations about it. I would think that our board is looking at it from a historic vantage point. And we would say, well, historically, this is what we feel is the best for here. And then they need to weigh on what public sentiment is, or how they use it, or how they view Fairhaven.
That's another way to go.
Historically, where we come from is not taking those other factors, which are very important, but it's not really in our jurisdiction as much as more historically, what is the most correct from that, and then they have to pray, people like.
That's another way to handle this.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that would streamline where we're coming from, because I don't think it's really our duty to have to go through the interaction with the community and so forth. I mean, we're really more of trying to give the most accurate and maybe going back to the original, maybe, something that is also historic and appropriate.
Yeah. Just to clarify, what I was sharing, was I suggesting that this body be responsible for managing or facilitating a public discussion in the entire community, but just that the council, undertake a process that does, go about to a certain extent.
I think we want to engage.
And then you'd be part of that.
And like, it's not done, as you were saying, back, where it was done 25 years ago, it just happened there. But I think we're somebody trusted and in general for this work district and in particular this building to make this kind of recommendation, so.
That is this
I
body.
I do think though, just from what I'm hearing, when I talk to people think that we are in a position we're at to best represent the history, the historical significance, after our charter, which says the historical significance of any place in Fairfield.
So we can make
So,
recommendations.
sure, 80% of the public, they say, you know what they're saying, we're hearing it. The appealing baby paint, that's horrible, fix it, they want it fixed. If someone said paint it white, with paint, look like all the houses in very, that's great, out of the clean. I'm not sure, I think people are counting on this body, maybe the historical commission to, just the way Patrick did it, is a single
It's
house.
a recurring item that
To represent the historical
Borough.
significance.
So this is something, where is this issue as it relates to the, instead of this
Yeah.
council meeting?
It has never come
Not
up, it has not been talked about, I'm talking, it's.
So how does it, I mean, again, do they need an impetus from?
I'm sorry.
Like they said, do they need a little coaxing from us?
Or-
Can we, but they are gonna. It's not for us to determine the way in which it happens, we can make the recommendation, but they ultimately, of course, as we said, have to make a decision. But we need them to kind of guide us on what they want.
I'm getting something that is. Our council said, come to us with some detail, what, if you want to process, give us a little detail in everything, including costs. Can't we, a couple people volunteer to contact people they know? Can we contact some of these people who do this kind of restoration and historical? Get an idea of what does it take to understand the history of the construction of a building? And understand the paint colors and some, there's key features. What would you normally do in a situation like that?
Yeah.
We talk to some people, we'll get a, what's the first one, and then we can give us something. But right now, I don't think we did do anything.
Well, so that,
We don't have much information.
that was sort of, that's the disconnect, in the sense that there was potential motives. There's potential motive, and then I know that you want us to sort of give you a hearing, of course, you want us to take the lead on it. But we aren't even, we're not even there yet, I think, there's nothing that's preventing us from doing that. I'm gonna reach out to Alex Pavlik, and I'm gonna reach out to the Monmouth County Historic Association. And get some guidance on it, and I indulge anybody else to do similar things, if they know somebody, and then by the next meeting, this will be an agenda item.
People to do.
Sheila is the secretary, I urge you to centralize your discussions, whether it's 3 or more of you, especially. Sheila, you have a secretary for that. So, and be central over possible.
Any you have, about each do, and you can distribute that as for whatever. Okay. Anything that would get it, and we can part, yeah, let them have first pass, and then get direct sendings to a habit.
Okay, so the last, okay, we can sort of have a general discussion, this is a little bit. Similar to a general discussion, I think we have an urgency now, I think we have a little bit of an idea of how this is gonna play out. And I'm hoping by next month, we're gonna have a little information from which to start some kind of blueprint. So we'll probably.
So something happened when the fire were presenting, new, fire truck options at a council meeting. And then the, CFO goes up and says, well, they're overstepping by going out and getting, calls because they did a whole presentation. So be very careful about getting any kind of feedback about what something is gonna cost. Because it has to go through the proper channels.
I would say, I certainly understand what you're concerned. The distinction there is, the car companies are gonna get different, they're subject to different statutes and stuff, but also they were running numbers through a state contractor, they thought state contractor, vendors weren't. So it's a little bit more complex than what came across in the conversation.
But however, if they're going out and talking to different people and getting some idea of the cost, it might have to go under a state contract,
Yeah.
then you have to be careful.
I think you're okay, because, Susan's point is good to me, but it's homework, it's more like the information is, should you know, to use as you care to, so it's not a formal quote. You're just getting a range or a general idea of,
Sure.
that's.
Quite well taken. Anything else on bicentennial hall? Or you-
Just want to bring up the stairs that were changed at the building on River Road, what the tour building over the weekend. They had some guy that changed the stairs. So they never got any permits and anything like that. And then the other one, you view the windows on the building next to the Von Arts, that they're two divided lights and there's no exterior grills on those windows.
Okay, so, that's something that bring to Sheila's attention, and Sheila will notify Nick Borchinski and,
Yeah,
Joe Legg.
that would be like,
Excuse me?
Joe, like.
Yeah, Joe Legg, yeah. You want to formally indicate?
Can you, maybe just email me with the properties that you're talking about, so I can be specific?
Okay, yeah, email you the address.
Yeah, and then I can send that to them and have them follow.
Okay.
Yeah,
The next item then is, the transfer window. Thank you to Katie and Steve actually for giving me some input on our letter, our memorandum of action on that. Has anything happened on that front, the recommendation? No.
I'm not aware of it being transmitted.
But it was submitted, it was provided to the
Sheila, I'm being copied on everything that comes
I
through
thought-
the
I
board
said-
or goes from the board, the commission, sorry.
which piece, what are you talking about?
it is our memorandum of action dated May 1st, 25 regarding the transfer. I believe I sent you a copy. Well,
That was before it got, I mean, until it goes to
yeah.
council.
Yes, I probably do corresponding to discuss that we want to have.
Okay, I may have, so did you, when you do it, because I didn't see it, I'm sorry, I don't
Yeah,
know, but did it get sent to Chris York? Allison?
and with the petitions and boards, I send it to the board members. I send everything, I send the agenda to Art and for his approval, and then I send all the information back to the members, and I've been copying anyone.
So, Are,
But no,
I
I
just need your attention.
Chris York gets an agenda, but it doesn't get all the information in there.
So
Okay,
in
so
this body, so I think I'm not sure of that, but when this body communicates to the governing body, it would be directed to Chris York,
Yeah.
copy the entire
Yes.
governing body.
Well, we had a
No,
discussion.
no, I haven't copied the entire.
So,
I
as
don't
a,
think that's.
so I think we should
I
establish some
directed to do that.
Well, I think we
protocol.
also had a
It
discussion.
all has to go through Chris. I don't
Yes.
send it directly to anybody in the governing body,
Well, that's UCCB as.
except the things that you asked to be copied. The things that you gave specific direction, if you send to Chris, copying his, that's what I've done.
At the last meeting, we had a discussion as to who should be copied, and I think we kind of addressed that. I think you and I, Sheila, we talked about it. Were all those people copied that we
Yes.
discussed?
Yes.
Are there people that are, with that knowledge, are there people that are absent, or people that, with your guidance, who else should we be notifying? Because as we kind of discussed last, this is sort of new procedurally, this is somewhat new for us.
Yeah, so all I know is all the parts of government need to talk to each other. And you do that in the form of a memorandum, your memorandums, and the liaison is copied so that I can facilitate the conveyance of your
So
work. to
were you
them.
copied on the final?
Sheila says yes.
Yes.
I have to see it but also I have to get it on the agenda or bring it up under, go to the borough.
Okay,
Um,
so I
I'm not
assume that
sure
was
what-
the last meeting.
No.
I suspect that it will be done at the next.
I'm not sure that I saw, but Sheila told me it was, so I'm sure it's in my inbox. Yeah, I'm sure it's in my inbox and for some reason. And it happens. I don't know about you guys or your email, but I'm swamped.
Yeah.
So, but it helps for me to know that it happened, and then I'll pull it for the next agenda.
Okay, regardless of the letter. No, it was email, wasn't bad. The status of it, status quo right now, it's being reserved, it's in the basement here. Okay. And, obviously the upshot is, you know, we requested that obviously be preserved, that it be integrated into the community center and, piece of design element that he said, minimal suggestion on, and I
Was
guess,
there a response to the memorandum?
no,
No.
very, it never really is.
You sent on May 2nd,
Thank you, Sheila.
Chris York and Mayor Howard, copy to you, Art.
Yeah, because I think I saw that.
Okay, so, okay, I'll pick it up.
It's a local record, I was doing a tour for an police department, facilities, and the community center, I walked through that through. And I can see exactly, we had sent that document, and it would just be a great place to put.
Okay.
But he said in the community center, it's at code, he must have already heard this recommendation, this suggestion. But he said it's not really possible to put it in there, it's supposed to be a construction, and you know, where it goes, there's no place to put it.
Well, that is
So I
a,
don't know if that's true, but
it's a
it
piece of
is,
work, where I have to evaluate the location and
Yeah.
see if it can be accommodated somewhere, so.
yeah,
Hopefully that wasn't gone off the cuff, because we should take the step of checking to see where it could be, but, and if, I don't know how he would have seen it, unless maybe the mayor forwarded it to him, but, it should go to the governing body.
Okay, so maybe we'll have over there some feedback there this morning. Yeah, because obviously, West was that at this point, all, even though the design elements have largely been finalized, that it's, we're still in a position right now where it can be integrated if possible, so.
Yeah, and it ultimately needs a final phase, so. Yeah, that can't find.
Yeah, anything else with regard to the transit? Last item, or not the last item, but the second one, the capstan. Steve, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so, Pete, I think when we were exchanging emails, you said that, have you called, I didn't call that the, what was it, cousin? I didn't call the cousin yet. Did you call that, or?
No, because I thought that was.
Okay. Yeah, no, yeah, so I haven't called it, I'll tomorrow.
Let me gain access to it. Is it, open, is it just like 9 to 5 and something? When is that yard?
Yeah, the DPW,
Yeah, on the weekends, it's largely closed. I would
Is that the DPW closed portion, or is that outside?
actually, I don't know where it is right now.
I think
It's 21 Fairhaven Road.
Yeah,
I saw it last week.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, they were eager
I've
to.
been out of the house for 6
they
months.
put it out.
Wow.
It's out in the
I
property.
saw it this week, wow.
Systems, right, because I remember, on some buzz about tidying up the site at DPW, it's almost done.
Okay, that actually makes it easier because then,
Yeah.
well, I'm curious to look to analyze it, to see if there's any manufacturer imprint, stamp, serial number, because that would give us a base.
Well, on Saturday morning, we were going to on the property.
Yeah, I would probably go.
Well, no, otherwise, there's an impressive song, stretch across there.
It's official commission business.
You can imagine.
Then more about, open up street, it's really concerned. It just happened, so
You're spot on.
100% good. The good part about it being there is sometimes visualizing something can spur the next idea, so just seeing it.
Yeah.
Now,
See it there.
now, I understand it was there, now people see it there and get that sense of, hey, we as a board have said, it feels like it belongs there.
I'll
So-
see.
Yeah.
I guess that,
Is it lying out?
okay.
Now, standing up, I was surprised to see it there.
Well, that's something for you to mention to Ed when you talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, sorry, I'm just looking at where is it? That's the property that's turning.
The end of Fairhaven Road on the right.
Right, that's turning into a park, basically, right? Yeah, and it's just sitting there
Yes, sitting there.
wow.
All right, well, I'll look at.
Yeah, I'll call,
And then I guess that then gives parlay into 21 Fairhaven Road. Is the update, if anything, on that?
The only update is there's another open house, there's a grant application deadline approaching. This body, like all others, is being asked to provide your input, which I've noted and I haven't written it formally yet, but I'll do that. And of course, make sure Sheila has it and, convey it to Chris York, he's the central, he's the keeper of the public input. And because it's gonna then be put into the application.
Yeah, and there was.
I did send it, I did send it to you.
The proposed letter, did you distribute that amongst everybody?
No, I didn't. I
Okay,
just was
so,
sent it to the
Yeah, I
chair.
received a proposed letter, in support of the grant going to Multnomah County Park System that being sought after by individual citizens and also by different groups and organizations, and it was emailed to us. Very briefly, it talks about the benefits of a waterfront park, creating value recreational asset in Fairhaven, many benefits and opportunities for the municipality and the region by developing it, and knowing the children and their families to be excited, and the funding by the county will allow Fairhaven to improve its open spaces, resulting in greater access to the Navasink River, scenic beauty for all Multnomah County, and that it is that whoever is signatory of this letter is wholeheartedly, to use the term in the letter, behind the funding for Fairhaven to develop this property. I think the letter is perfectly worded. I will make a motion that we execute on behalf of the commission this letter and submit it to the Multnomah County Park System so that we can be in support in this, in the grants that the Multnomah County Park System has to offer for the development of that property. That motion, they will take it to a vote. The second,
Mr. Pavlik,
yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Tudor,
Yes.
Mr. Helen,
Yes.
Mrs. Fitzgerald,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so we'll get that like out to these that stuff as far as that. So get it.
Because it's coming from the Historic Preservation Commission and that site is in the historic district. I would only suggest that be noted somewhere in your version of the letter, because that is a template that's been distributed, pretty widely. So, it's just a suggestion if you feel it's appropriate.
Yep, absolutely. Anything else on Fairhaven?
It's at the moment until we can, secure our professionals and continue with, some planning analysis and, really get on to some design considerations, all of which can't happen until we secure some funding. So that's the status for right now.
Okay. The last thing that's not on the agenda, but I think that Sheila distributed.
I did not get a copy. I'm aware that I don't have this.
Are you talking about the plaque?
I only heard, I haven't read it. I don't know about it. I haven't seen it.
You did distribute it to everybody?
I did not send it to Tracy because it came to me.
No, the commission members.
So the commission members that did, because it came to me, I believe it to be, well, it was from, DJ Breckenridge. at the request of Councilmember La Rivera. And so I took it to be a council matter that was being, given to this body as an informational purpose.
Yeah, and that's how.
And I
we'll take
spoke
it.
to you about it today, that it really was just for informational purposes, just as a, like, FYI, this is what they're.
Well, so I know,
Not for you to direct it, so I was like, what are the expectations for the seat, and not a, direct, not providing direction, comment specifically, to be just distributed for your.
Yeah,
two
and then,
things, if I may.
Yeah.
If I may. I kind of start, I need to be on all the communication when you send something to this commission, unless you feel otherwise, Mr. Chairman.
I did not.
And when something is conveyed from this body to the other parts of government, just copy me, then I'll know. If that's acceptable.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with that. And certainly, we get a lot of emails, we get a lot of
I'm
things,
sure.
a lot of requests, and frequently what I'll do is I'll communicate with Sheila and say, submit this to everybody on the commission,
Mhm.
either put it as an agenda item or just a discussion item.
Mhm.
This is one that came in a couple of days ago. Again, there was no real context that it was finalized or formal, but it was sent to us. So we figured it would be something to distribute and discuss. I don't know if there's any comment on it, but if it's something that's just in the workings now, perhaps it's not even appropriate at this point. to even
I don't
discuss
know,
it.
because your agenda is published and this isn't on your agenda.
Because it
Really,
came in, I think, after the agenda.
It wasn't an agenda. It's an item that was asked.
what were you asked to do?
I was asked to give it to Art. And I have started with about having sent it to the commission.
Sure.
So
So was there a request attached to this communication?
no, it wasn't a request to accept it or do anything, but it was sent to me. I sent it to Sheila for the commission to share.
Mhm.
We'll take that.
Yeah, I just, and I wish you did have a copy of it, because I'm never really look at it here, but I'm really happy that they have sort of that kind of message in this document. It's a vignette of when the original women's school burned down. But it's taken from a textbook, on the African American dilemma, of school integration in the North and in New Jersey. But the context is a little bit missing, so I hope it's not finalized.
It doesn't seem like
It needs an introduction and a short, and it needs to be referenced. And there's just a few little things in here, but I think it's a great story. It says that you wouldn't.
What is that?
It's not, it's recommended, it should be here in the police department.
And as for the process, I think it's important for the commission to know that it was stated at a council meeting that I think it's Councilmember who said the process was that he was working when this came, and I asked about that, and he said the process was that he was working with Reverend Smith, and that Reverend Smith and his members of the congregation owned the initial creation of what crafting what that message would be. And so, because when I saw that email and I talked to Steve about it, there are some similar concerns, and I did call DJ because he was the one who then asked what the process was. And he said the process, if you have any feedback, just give it to Reverend directly, he's the owner of this message.
So he didn't want to be back.
Yeah.
He wants feedback, but not that.
But Reverend Smith did tell me in terms of process, just to be so transparent, and said, I think it's in the grammar fixing stage, which I felt it was a little further along, Tracy, than I had anticipated. But at the end of the day, the councilman Rivera said that process started with Reverend Smith. It wasn't a big thing. And so I'm sure, like anything, when everybody writes something, they're going to get different opinions of what it is. So I had just specific concerns, which I shared with them.
With the pastor, Steve?
Yes. And as DJ, asked DJ how to handle that. So
I feel uncomfortable making Pastor Duke responsible for that.
that was stated at the council meeting when I asked who was responsible for it, and.
You know, but if you state something in a council meeting, it doesn't make it binding.
No, not me. I asked at a council meeting.
No, I was meaning was, even if the council person makes a statement,
Oh.
it is binding. I don't, you know, I'm just saying, when four council said it, that's.
So I can't comment on that, just,
That's
so all I know is, it's so.
Can I send that comments to you? I don't know where the process goes or.
No, I haven't read it, you guys. I also think this is important and I want to make sure that the community has the right thing here. And I'm unclear about, I haven't read it. I don't know why DJ was the person to convey it. I don't know why it wasn't. I'm very
It's a
confused about it.
it's an important kind of document.
But it's
That's
important.
here is. It's settled and it's not settled. It's a very. I think it honors what's going on there by giving a story.
Yeah,
But the context to a stranger who walked into the police station and starts reading this. They're gonna get academic, they're not gonna know what's talking about it. There's no context that this school was segregated. It
Yeah,
doesn't
what
start.
publication, if you were referring to a publication where that information.
What
is the publication?
It's called the African American Dilemma, a history of school integration in the North. Joey Burkholder, and she's a professor in New Jersey somewhere. And it's actually a pretty recent book, but that's apparently where he got a lot of the story. They have a story in the book. I couldn't get finance to get the book. But there's no reference here to where the story came from, and there's some quotations on the page from various people. You can't.
they're not.
Like that, that's some references and a little more context, but I like the idea, it's just that it needs to be cleaned up a bit for public consumption.
Sure. I mean, guys, I don't know how this materialized. I'm definitely gonna help you, but
Yeah, at some point we'll address it.
These are, I think it might be in a rush because the police station is gonna open, you might be thinking this is gonna be sitting on the wall when they open the police
Is it
station.
the wall or the black outside of the?
None of this, I don't know this, but this is too small to be outside.
It'll be placed outside the building.
Yeah, it's not at this stage, you don't want to see it, that's not the purpose of what.
I thought it was this, this is what I know. Is that the council agreed that the site of the former black school was important. And while there wasn't any more architectural evidence of the building, we know it was there. And the site needed to have a landmark type of signage, which would accommodate some language. I mean, I can sort of see through some of the pages and it looks like it's a lot of words. So I don't know if there's a word count, I don't know who the authorship belongs to, I don't know. So I don't understand procedurally how it landed here with you guys. I have a lot of questions. And
I think some people just defer to the fact that anything historic. They basically send it to me, send it to Sheila, and
well,
that's
they're
fine.
not wrong, right?
So,
There's actually a vendor who's already working with them on the craft on this, so they're, that I have the same feedback, initial feedback that you had was just mechanically how do those, that many words display. It's not, and I'm not a professional at that, so I assumed when I saw the vendor's name, well, they would certainly give the governing body feedback, hey, thanks for giving me a two-page essay, don't know that. But the fact that they rendered it, they provided the rendering of what it looked like, I thought, okay, it's doable.
That's why I don't from the wall. I just want to go outside. It's how much words.
Well, but I only know what the council agreed to, which is a landmark sign outside. And there really hasn't been anything else that council have been made aware of or agreed to or reviewed. But a lot of these things to keep it moving, they have, you know, it gets to a certain point and then it has to go to the council. So,
okay, well, we'll move on. Now, the last thing that's actually on the agenda, which I overlooked, was under new business, was an email that I got. And I already talked to Pat about this, but it was a land surveyor that basically indicated, and I'll read what he told me. We came across a deed from 1916, and the description references Church Street and Fairhaven Road. The distances and directions, for example, Fairhaven Road being north of Church Street, didn't add up. So the question was, and this is posed to anybody, was the current river road ever called Fairhaven Road? And he goes on to say that he's seen maps labeling River Road as Red Bank Road and Oceanic Road. And he's also seen Pearl Street as a portion of the current Fairhaven Road lying north of the current River Road. So I guess the question is, does anybody know in history whether the current River Road was ever called Fairhaven? And Pat, who I was hoping to have some input on that, doesn't really know much about that, so I'm not optimistic that anybody else. First-hand knowledge. And I guess with that note, if Susan knows that anyway,
Yeah.
or if there's anybody that may be chiming in on Zoom, if there's anybody listening in. No, okay.
No, no.
Somebody's. Yes.
I thought that there was a postcard that said road to Fairhaven, but it's going there should be on. I don't know whether.
I couldn't really, it was called what? What was it called? I said it was called
Road to Fairhaven.
Road to Fairhaven.
And it looked like it was going to pass Chevy on.
Hmm.
Very important, and I can't remember whether I have it. Or.
All right, so,
There's something.
you what?
So there's a map online that labels River Road as Red Bank Road.
Okay, he mentioned that, but he's basically asking more about Fairhaven.
Information.
What he's saying was River Road if it's Fairhaven. Like Fairhaven Road,
No.
Yeah, obviously, it's perpendicular now, yeah. right? Right, that's what he's asking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
In
Okay.
fact,
I'll indicate that it's an unresolved issue. Give it offer no guidance on. Okay, anything else, the audience, the commission members or on Zoom? Make a motion to adjourn? Oh, we do have, before we grant that, motion to adopt the minutes from our last
Oh,
meeting.
yes.
May I request,
Are you making a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll probably,
Wait, just one.
okay,
Yes, I think we have a second.
Okay.
We got one. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. He whispered.
Are you withdrawing your second?
Adopt the minutes. Wait,
Jay, we're not in that, except
uh,
Does somebody else want it?
I was not there.
That was there.
at least I know you were there.
second.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Schmidt? Me? No, did you say it's worth it? Mrs. Costello? Yes. And Mr. Casey? Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
For we adjourn, yes.
oh, it could be post adjournment, I was just gonna request the minutes as I compile the notes for the feedback from the historic commission on 21. So those minutes, do you remember the meeting that there was it the last meeting? Where we had a dedicated portion of the agenda for discussion on 21?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it resulted in that, around back, yes. It was the, actually, we're here.
We, that, and your packets here, by the way, because we got it.
I just, okay, so,
The minutes are in the
oh, the minutes, okay.
Yeah,
Do you,
and now they're approved, and now they'll be posted on the website. So as soon as they're approved, I send them in and should post them on the website. My
The
understanding is
minute-
also that they get printed and put into the phone now.
well, that hasn't happened yet, maybe that's gonna happen. So I might not be tracking. Did you just approve the minutes for the last meeting, and it was the last meeting we already had the discussion on the 21? Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
we somehow have the adjournment motion hanging around. So it's wrong. Yeah.
This one single thing, we were talking about, you asked, oh, was it oyster? RC 21 Ferry Road. Yes, it did, and it was, it was, we got actually, but I noticed that I was walking down Clay Street, and there's a house on Clay Street where, they have just oyster shells.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of smiled when I saw that, it's obviously an homage to the.
Well, they're from Maryland, so. I don't want, I don't want, you know, I can't speak formally, but.
Yeah. I strike my comment. So, yeah.